the expert on the factual questions. But we are going to have to make at least 2 tweaks to this map. I believe after we make those tweaks that there will have been proper notice, and frankly I'm absorbing it as I'm hearing this, and we'll reflect on it in several more minutes. But based on what I'm hearing, it's my understanding at this point that there has been proper notice. And to the gentleman's point, I think it required perhaps a little bit of homework on the part of a property owner, but I think that's generally the case when there is a, let's say more typically a zoning amendment. This one's a little different, but it's in the nature of that kind of land use regulation, that there is some homework required on the part of the property owner to see whether or not and how they may be affected by it. So I'm just going to confirm what I've been hearing, but based on what I've been hearing, it would appear that adequate notice was provided.
Okay. So it's also been pointed out there's another one on Lancaster Ave that was added.
So just briefly, so when you look at Lancaster Ave, when you say on the left side, which would be the west side, the lowermost lot on Lancaster Ave, I'm told, was incorrectly included. So I'll be writing text to, sir, is that the lot you're referring to?
Come on up and point it out. At ease. Well, we have a break. We do have lunch. And it was delicious. I'm not planning on taking a lunch break because I've got a lot to do and I want to get through it and I know it's a beautiful day. If everybody goes and gets lunch, I love it. If you're not coming back, I'm going to have a problem with quorum. Don't go too far. Everybody find a seat. Thank you for coming. We're going to get started. Okay, everybody come take a seat. I'll get to use the gavel now. Thank you. All right, so we're going to have a report from the Brain Trust as to maps. Where's Mr. Menard? Where'd he go? Okay, come on back to the microphone, because I think, listen, I very much appreciate the level of detail to make sure that we get whatever we get right.
This
Thank
is
you
why
very
you
much.
never invite engineers to a meeting.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, it's like inviting boys to a meeting. Okay, so who'd like to report on the resolution of the questions of what's in the district and where the townsfolk properly notice?
Mr. Moderator, if you look at the bylaw, on page 15, towards the top, it's the last section, section 15, appendices. It says Appendix A, the locational boundaries of the town of Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District are defined and shown on the town of Lunenburg Village Center District map and the town of Lunenburg Historic District map, which is a part of this bylaw. And you'll find both of those in the bylaw, page 12 and one is on page 12 and one's on page 20. So those two maps, so the yellow map that we were handed today, which is helpful and it's more legible than the others, is mostly accurate, but there are 2 or 3 mistakes on it. But the black and white maps in the bylaw do accurately define the district. You just have to do a bit of an overlay exercise. But again, if you live at XYZ Main Street, you can find your property on those maps, and you will be informed as to whether or not you're in the district.
Okay, so that being said, are we voting on the map or are we voting on what's printed in the warrant? Well, I'm going to ask the moving part. What are we voting on? We're voting what's on the warrant, correct? So the map might be illustrative, but it's not binding, right? Okay, Mr. Menard.
I'm sorry, let's jump in. So there is a slight amount of confusion on that point, and maybe we just need to clarify that section 3 of this article. It's the very top of page 13. Text that says section 3 is at the bottom of page 12, but at the top of page 13 is section 3, designation of architectural preservation district. The APD shall, by the time we vote, encompass the areas shown on the map entitled the Town of Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District. So it only refers to one of the 2 maps. The appendix has both. So maybe we'll just want to add their village center map. So it's just included right in the bylaw as well. So we'll have it in both places so that section 3 and the appendix will be consistent.
So you're going to keep a list of some of these technical things that we need to make adjustments?
Right.
Okay, you're going to have that list?
Well, yes, after
Thank you.
rewriting it.
All right, so now that I've reminded you, excellent. Okay, Mr. Menard, I think we were with you when you were talking about notification to make sure people understood what was in the map. Go ahead.
Well, so I think we now are back onto what's in the warrant. I do think it was a little confusing to me, the reader, that Article 27's map was actually part of Article 26. So those properties that are on Article 27's map, but not in Article 26, although it is clear that you should have read that, it would have possibly been a little misleading to those folks. So I hope they don't have a problem with this.
Well, what is clear to me, Mr. Menard, is that they're all invited to the town meeting. Whether they're in an article that particularly pertains to them, or whether it's an article that pertains to the town in general, I would hope they'd all come. Turns out when we have a 70-degree day, it's the first 70-degree day, we get the attendance of about half of what we would have expected. So I think they're on notice generally, and specifically, although they may dig deep. I'm satisfied that everyone is on notice as to what we need. So to that point, I really appreciate your scrutiny.
Thank you.
Well,
Good afternoon, Susan Diamantopoulos, 53 Whiting Street. I too am fortunate to live in a historical home, part of the historical district. And I appreciate the fact that this warrant is here for us to consider our history in Lunenburg, the integrity of the village center. We have a lot of vacant space in the village center. We do not want that integrity ruined. We have the ability to change that, and I would hate to see that developers come in and change the history of this town that does have that rich history. We run a historical tour, third graders. Many of the parents coming to those historical tours have no idea of the rich history that exists in our town. Our children should know that, should see it, should understand it, and I would hate for it to disappear based on a developer's decision to turn vacant space into a strip mall. Thank you.
yes, young lady.
Hi, Susan Bunnish, 30 Pleasant View Ave, and I'm not involved in the center at all, but I did want to ask, is the Zoning Board of Appeals the next option if a homeowner does disagree with the recommendations?
Mr. Moderator? The answer to that is no. This is not a zoning, it's not an amendment to the zoning bylaw, and so the Zoning Board of Appeals would not have a role in this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to take a moment and just, first of all, thank the Planning Board, the Historical Commission, and all of the work that they put into this. This is 2 years of charrettes, public input, public hearings, revisions, working together, working apart for the pieces that are for them. And the reason it took the 2 years that the mover of the article brought is because we tried to really find, or they really tried to find a balance between property owner rights and the ability of a town to make some general visual and aesthetic decisions about how they want the town to look and feel. Why did it come up now? It came up now, as many people said, because the next article is looking to change wholesale the nature of the district in the town center from residential and just one commercial property to an overlay that will encourage more economic development and more businesses. That's why it's done now. As was noted, owners of historic properties have, for the most part, done a very good job at keeping up the properties and keeping that. Those same owners and those same residents that we look to, not only in the center district, but in the whole town, to make the right decision, those are the people who are going to serve on this commission's board. So if I can trust them, and we can trust them, and have trusted them for making those decisions, why would we not think that this committee that's going to be formed by this article would make equally responsible decisions for the properties that we're looking for them to protect, at least in a modicum of protection. I think they've really driven the line and balanced the equation of what you can do as your own property, as your own personal residence, to what the town has as a responsibility to its heritage and to the historical properties. So I think this is the right balance, and the right balance took 2 years of time for that reason. So I fully support this article, and I hope that everybody else in town really does too.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're getting ready to vote. Nobody said move the question. So we've got several matters that we need to get addressed. First, we've got some technical. You can't hear me? No. I can't believe that. Usually I'm loud enough for everybody to tell me to be much more quiet. That's my way. So we've got several issues we need to do. First, we've got some technical things that need to be kind of clarified and tightened up. And town council is going to deal with those. And I'm going to ask, those are technically amendments, so we'll just kind of go through that and make sure that we have a very clear article. Then we've got an issue from the gentleman on Main Street that he wanted to make a motion to amend. We would vote on that if he still wishes to. We have Mr. Rogers, and something that he wanted to move an amendment for, we would vote on that. You vote on the amendment separate, you argue about the amendment separate, and then you vote on the entire article depending upon how the amendments that may have changed the article or maybe didn't change the article. Mr. Toll, I believe, also had something that he was going to propose as an amendment. So we're going to go through those kind of in the order that I received them. So let's go first to town council and make sure that we have,
Mr. Toll's actually the chair, composition.
okay, so they can't hear, clearly they can't hear me,
No, I'm just saying to you.
to me.
To go to Mr. Toll.
Mr. Toll, why don't you tell us what yours is, because I think it's something that is a part of what she had already made.
Correct.
Thank you.
The mover did recognize through discussions with the Historical Commission, the Planning Board, and the Selectmen, we discussed the makeup of the commission and had conversations about the two residents that make up that commission. The wording that exists in both the warrant and the handout says two residents of the APD. I simply have a motion.
So make it as a motion.
Sure. Jamie Toll, 147 Peninsula Drive. I move that the last two sentences in section 4 be amended to read, to the extent achievable, the APDC shall be comprised of the following persons: a member of the Lunenburg Historical Commission, a design professional, a craftsperson or building contractor familiar with historic restoration, and two residents, one resident of the APD and one resident at large. Members and alternates of the APDC shall, by reason of experience and/or education, have demonstrable knowledge, interest, and ability to effectively carry out the APDC's responsibilities.
Second on that. So discussion on the amendment, which is what she said when she presented it to you, that she wanted to fix as the amount, as the membership. And now it's been made as a formal amendment. On the amendment only.
Troy Daniels, 94 million. The professionals that you speak about, do they have to be residents of Lunenburg?
Anybody who serves on the body of a committee would have to be a resident.
You volunteers?
No. So should it state that, or, here's my concern, if you don't state that, could a board be padded with corporations?
Mr. Moderator, I just had a conversation here with the chairman. Actually, there's a state law that says unless a local bylaw or state law says otherwise, a person need not be a town resident to serve on a local board.
Need not.
Need not be, right.
The gentleman is asking whether or not it should say shall.
You could have it say that, but if the town bylaw is silent, then you could have an outside preservationist or whatever sit on the town board, if you so chose.
Did you want to make that as an amendment? And if you did, you could ask Mr. Toll if you would accept that.
Mr. Toll, would you accept the amendment to add that?
I will.
Cooperate. Okay.
There's a marriage.
All right, so the only change, Mrs. Harris, presented to you is to add in the language that each member shall be a resident of the town of Bloomington, correct? Good, okay. On the amendment, changing the composition of the committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. The amendment passes by more than a simple majority. Okay, so that amendment is clear. Now, the next order of business is Mr. Town Council, Mr. Barr.
Mr. Moderator, I've written this for Rebecca Lantry, if that's okay. So it's, the motion be amended as follows. First, section 2 definitions delete the definition of aggrieved party.
Let's just make sure for people that are following carefully, engineer time, that we know exactly where they are, what page they're starting on, and go through the articles so that we can basically follow along.
Okay, so
Thank you.
that would be on page 11. And you'll see the third definition down is aggrieved party. And it's simply not, that term's not used in the bylaw. Or actually it is, but it's a legal term, so in any event, so it's being deleted. And the second one, of course, is going to be at the top of page 13. And this is in section 3, the section with the caption designation of architectural protection district. So it would say that the APD shall, by town meeting vote, encompass the area shown on the maps, plural, entitled Town of Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District. And then add, and Lunenburg Historic District. Oh, that's pretty. No, no, that's pretty cool. Where is it? Okay, I take it back then. So then the amendment will state where it now says Town of Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District, delete that and simply state Lunenburg Historic District.
So they can follow along. Where are you?
Again, so top of page 13, that top line is going to say, encompass the areas shown on the maps entitled Lunenburg Historic District. So that's referring to the map you'll see when you're on page 13, it's right there, page 12. And then the other reference is going to be the map on page 20, which will be the Lunenburg Village District. So, to read it through, it will say, the APD shall, by town meeting vote, encompass the areas shown on the maps entitled Lunenburg Historic District and the Lunenburg Village District, and appended to this bylaw, period. The next sentence is unchanged.
I'll take that as an amendment. Language on the amendment.
The actual language should be the village center district. It says potential village center district on the legend. Okay, village center.
But the labeling of the map itself.
I stand corrected.
Okay, so is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Okay, on the amendment.
Can I amend the amendment?
You can,
Well, recommend?
why don't you suggest something, let's see if they'll accept it.
I would suggest to discourage confusion in perpetuity, that we only have one map referenced in this bylaw, and that it be what is now the two maps put together.
We don't have.
Yeah, the concern is that, we did start with this as the discussion point, but two errors were found, and there's concern there might be more. And further, this stays closer to what was in the warrant, like you raised earlier. I think the hope and objective would be perhaps at the next town meeting to have a single unified map that could be clear and be referred to. This language could be amended.
Okay, so you'll withdraw your amendment. So on the, any other discussion on, will they treat as an amendment to what Attorney Barger said? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye on the amendment. Say aye. Opposed? Right, so that amendment is passed. The next proposed amendment came from the gentleman on Main Street.
Lawrence Marshall, 42 Main Street, is hereby moved that section 7 be amended to change within 20 days of receiving a request to within 45 days of receiving a request.
Second.
And then section 8 be amended to change within 30 days of the application submittal to within 45 days of the application submittal.
Second.
There's a second on both of them. Now, on that amendment, is there any discussion on the amendment to change the dates? Okay, don't see any?
I just want to, if I may, I just want to comment that I fully support the amendment, and looking at this, if the committee formed by this bylaw is only going to meet once a month, it only seems prudent to put it at 45 days to make these responses, and I think it would be that.
Why we have your input, sir? Okay. So on the amendment to change the dates as proposed, and I'll take that in writing, just to be sure, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Passes by more than a simple majority on the amendment. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, the next issue on amendment was Mr. Rogers' amendment. Want to make your amendment, Mr. Rogers?
You have, sir.
I have. You want me to make it? I don't know.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we remove 82 Highland Street from the district.
Is there a second, Mr. Rogers? There's a second. Okay. So on the amendment to remove 82 Highland Street from the map from the district, any discussion? It's been seconded.
I have two questions. First, I'd like to know, aside from being subject to the potential enforcement of this bylaw, I'd like to know why the applicant wants to be removed, number one. And number two is it part of historic district currently?
I'm not aware that it's in the historic district, and the reason that I want to have it excluded is because I choose not to be in the district. Very frankly, I don't think that any other discussion or rationale is required, something that I just don't want to be in that district.
And is it part of the historic district?
Yes, it is.
So then I would certainly not support the amendment, and the fact that I'm assuming, and I believe that in the designation of the historic district, they took historic criteria into consideration, and the moving party of the amendment is looking to change that. They live in a historic residence. That's just seemingly a factual piece that was included.
Mr. Bertram? You're all set? Did you want to say anything, Mr. Bertram?
No, I mean, I just think that a homeowner, taxpayer, voter should have certain inalienable rights, and that is what I don't want it in the district, but if it's the feeling of this body politic that they feel differently, certainly I will have to accept that, and I will appeal my rights to the APDC board and wait to 90 days and see what happens. Oh, that's right, I don't have any rights under that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. On the amendment regarding hiring, Mr. Rabbit.
Yes, John Rabbit, 314 Towns Tower Road. Am I to understand that an individual can decide to opt out of the district at any time they want and put a contemporary home or something right in the middle of that district? Is that what we're voting for and will allow to happen?
No, I don't give opinions, so let me ask town council if that's the case.
This comes to the question, Mr. Rogers, did you live in that house in 1986?
I think my understanding of the answer, Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Rogers, today's the day the map is set. Right? So today's the day that Mr. Rogers could have his individual property or any individual property today off that map. He's made that motion, but today's the day. Once the map is set, no. Doesn't mean somebody else can come in, my opinion, and I think that's the council's telling me. Those churches want to tell me that I'm wrong,
Mr. Moderator, you know, there will be an article later on that we're going to look at changing the zoning, and that does happen all the time. So, you know, could it happen at a future date to remove a property from a district? Absolutely. Could it happen at a future date that a property could be rezoned? Absolutely. I would discourage this article simply because this property, this amendment is because this property is in the historic district, it is considered a historic home, and with those are the types of properties this APD is looking to protect.
I appreciate, I'm sorry.
Mr. Rabbit, we're still
I'm concerned with a precedent potentially being set. I'm concerned that an individual property can take on respect.
You'll still be my friend, go ahead.
I'm just concerned.
We can let Jack.
I got water too, oh my God. So anyway, I'm concerned that someone could at some point decide, I want to opt out and start changing the very nature of our town that we asked the district to do. And I would therefore not support this amendment because it's already part of the existing district and I don't want to see that changed. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Well, I was just going to comment that I appreciate the discussion, and for the record, I really don't need anybody to defend me. I mean, I'm quite capable of that. And, you know, it is what it is. I choose, for whatever reason, not to be in the district, and it's very simple.
Thank you. I think we're ready to vote on this. So we're voting on just the amendment to take out that property at 82 Highland, is that correct?
Correct.
82 Highland. All those in favor of the amendment to take it out, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No! Article, the amendment, is defeated. Correct. I think that's all the amendments that were proposed. Now we're on to the article. You may debate now, if you need to any longer, anything else on the article as it's been amended. Are you ready to vote? I hope so. All those in favor of this article, number 26, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Passes by more than a majority. Thank you. It's a simple majority. Simple majority passes by more than a simple majority. Article 27 has some interrelation. Let's hope it is easier.
Okay, Article 27.
I can't hear you, so I can't imagine that.
Kenneth Chen, 715 Page Street. Article 27, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by adding section 4.17, Village Center District, as printed in the warrant and amended in the handout, submitted by the planning board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation.
Recommend approval?
Finance Committee.
No direct financial impact.
This is zoning. Does the planning board need to announce their vote?
Yes, report.
Planning? Somebody here?
Planning board recommendation is in favor, unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Chen. This is going to require a 2/3 majority because it's a zoning bylaw. Tell us about the article, Mr. Chen.
I'd like to defer to Mr. Bernie, our land use director, for a short presentation.
Short, I like that word.
All right, we'll try and keep this nice and simple. So, Village Center District, I think we have identified generally where we are. All portions of Main Street, portions of Massachusetts Ave, Lancaster Ave, and Leominster Road, as depicted on the map here. You have a full-page map in your handouts. It is the last page on the rear of the presentation. You will notice that the fun circle that was included in the mail board is gone. The circle was denoting a half mile, so the blue boundary is the boundary of the district. The purpose, I know you can all read, so I'm not going to read this to you. This is the purposes within the bylaw. The quick and dirty of it is we want to create a multi-use, vibrant civic district in the center of town that allows for people to live, work, and garner services in the area where they are often with their children for school, paying tax bills, maybe have a nice place to eat, maybe get some small-scale retail. This is not intended to create a second Walmart in the center of town. It's limiting size and scope of commercial uses to fall into what one would find in a traditional center district. These are the by right uses, to kind of give you a quick warm fuzzy about them. You'll notice multiple commercial containing 5,000 square feet or less per use. To give you some context on that, the CVS in Whalen is probably about 15,000 square feet. So that would encompass 3 uses within the village district. So again, we're not looking at major commercial, we're looking at the kind of things you would expect to find in a downtown. Special permitted uses, single-family and two-family homes, some of these other uses, these are things that the town doesn't want to, or the authors of the bylaw don't want to prohibit outright, but want to give the ability for someone who has an appropriate business with the appropriate contextual parts to it that are going to fit into the village to locate there through a public process. And to give you kind of a very quick overview of what you might see in the physical space in that area. I think we're all aware what this house is. The intent of this is to use properties that might be underused. This was chosen because it belongs to everybody, it doesn't belong to anybody, no one's getting picked on. And to show what they may be transformed as if someone were to try and do it. Is this what someone might do to that? We can't say, but it's a mock-up that shows it containing additional retail, potential office or living space on the second floor, holding the colonial roof line, holding glazing that meets with what is within the bylaw and has that same scale and feeling that currently exists in downtown. And that's really the presentation. The other thing that I will add is this bylaw will have impacts on Articles 28, 29, 31, 32, and 33. Those will be housekeeping articles that will fold the parts of the village district into the remaining 4 parts of the protective bylaw where it's necessary that they be referenced.
Assuming that the article is
Assuming that it passes.
Sir.
Hi, my name is Mike Clark, 275 Boston Road. I'd like to introduce Attorney Rebecca Robinson as a non-resident, speaking on my behalf, representing myself.
You may, Mr. Clark. Attorney Robinson, tell us who you are, where you're from, or what firm you're from.
My name is Rebecca Robinson. I'm with the law firm of Bonneville and Howard. The boss is Ed Howard, who also resides here in Lunenburg, but had to golf in South Carolina today, so I apologize for the failure.
No, he doesn't apologize for golf.
I apologize on his behalf while I use my Saturday to hang out with you all. First off, we had a couple of questions about the bylaw. The first question is pertaining to page 8 of the handout. Just above section 4.17.4, the section that says retail, where it explains that an establishment engaged in displaying goods, et cetera, shall have no outdoor display of goods without the granting of a special permit. And we were just seeking additional clarification. For instance, Mr. Clark's wife owns a floral shop. Would she be not permitted on a sunny, warm day to, if the door was open, to put a small stand of flowers outside to lure people into the shop perhaps? Is that something that would be restricted under this section?
The section, I think, refers to permanent outdoor display. I think something that were a stand of flowers may be interpreted as a freestanding sign. I think that if she were to set up a wooden rolling cart that day after day she were consistently placing a large amount of flowers on, we would have to speak with the building inspector about his interpretation of how that applies to the zoning bylaw, but I'll say a random impromptu display of goods in a small scale, I think is not what the intent of this is.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, section 4.17.8, design standards, part C, signs.
Give him a second to find the spot for that.
Sure, it's technically page 11 that I'm looking at, that helps.
That's the section again.
Okay. 4.17.8, design standards, under section C, signs, number 9. It says a building with multiple businesses shall have signs of equal size on the facade. Signs shall be either rectangular or oval shaped. I just wanted to point out this does not match the sample picture you provide in this handout of what might happen. If you look at that, the business titles, the sample business titles are of unequivalent size. So are we saying in some situations you can have different sizes? Or is this going to be universally applied to all businesses in the village district? You scroll down on that building. See tenant sign versus all those other ones.
Correct. Well, I think that it's per facade. So if you will notice on this facade, these tenant signs are of equal size, and on this facade, the tenant sign is singular. I think that that's an interpretation issue with the building inspector. This is not representative of what would be built. It was done for free by an architect, more to show the massing of building. There may have been some liberties taken with the signs. The intent is that the facades would be uniform with signage to match and create a consistent feeling throughout the village and on the facades. And again, this would be for new construction and new signs. Existing businesses that have existing signs are pre-existing non-conforming uses and can't be retroactively subject to the zoning bylaw.
Also, I was curious about part 10, right under that. Freestanding signs shall be prohibited except for municipal use, portable, and temporary signs. In comparison to the next page, page 12, 4.17.9 Village Center District Campus Developments, part 2 signs, freestanding directory signs may be permitted as part of the Village Center District Campus. It seems a bit of a contradiction in terms of what they say. Can you elaborate more on that and how it's not contradictory?
I'm sorry, can I elaborate on what? I missed the last portion of your question.
Sorry, sure. The difference between section 10 of part C signs on page 11 versus the next page, part 12 under 4.17.9 Village Center District Campus Development, section C signs where freestanding directory signs are permitted.
Well, the intent is that if you look at the village district, the opportunity for freestanding signs could be immense if every building were given a freestanding sign. For the campus development, the intent is that a larger parcel is inhabited by multiple buildings of a variety of sizes. The directory sign would be to provide an idea of, upon entering, in which direction you're going within the site to gain access to the various buildings. So the intrusion of multiple freestanding signs for each and every property, should they all become commercial, eliminates the village feeling, creates potential pedestrian, traffic, and other hazards, as well as an immense visual impact. And that's the feeling behind the elimination of freestanding signs for all properties.
Now, given that is your goal with this, under 4.17.9, would the same rationale be applied to the currently existing village, which has multiple businesses in which could also potentially benefit from a directory pointing people into various locations?
I think that would be a conversation of interpretation to be had with the building inspector. If my understanding is correct, the village is on a parcel that contains multiple businesses, thus a directory sign may be appropriate at a specified location of a size that was appropriate. But again, that's an interpretation question that the building inspector would have to weigh in on.
If there's nobody else waiting in line, I guess I'll continue then. Just to reiterate, Mr. Clark and Mrs. Clark are both in favor of the general concept of what you're trying to accomplish with 4.27 here. Article 27 here. Obviously, there's a need for additional foot traffic in the village area, especially the pre-existing village, because for decades now, there's been a consistent problem of having full occupancy there. There's always perpetually, including right now, vacancies. Unfortunately, as much as your goal is to drive foot traffic and visibility, having people come out to that building, it's not appropriate signage. What's currently allowed by the town is not accomplishing your goals, and what this bill does is basically maintain that status quo with sections 9 and 10 of Part C on page 11. Because it does not permit freestanding signs, not even a singular individual freestanding sign which would advertise all the businesses. It limits the size of the signs on the facade. So if there was a big store, for instance, like a convenience store, in comparison to other smaller storefronts, that convenience store that is bigger than everyone else cannot have a sign that is bigger than everyone else, even though their building space is larger. I talked to numerous residents this week, many of whom don't remember the last time they've been there to the village to shop or stop downtown. They couldn't tell you what was in there. I've lived on the, and I'm the first to testify, I've lived on the Lunenburg-Fitchburg line my whole life, and I've gone there, I think, once because Kathy Clark told me to. I've had family who lived in downtown Lunenburg, and the entire time I would visit them, I don't remember ever coming to the village. So there's a need to drive traffic, and I see you're trying to accomplish that. I'm just concerned that you're not doing that with the way the bill is currently written for those two parts, that sections 9 and 10 of Part C. I would suggest that if you were to drive by today and you try to look, if you're coming from the west, so you're coming up to a heading east, and you're coming from Fitchburg, or you're coming from Leominster via Route 13 up to A, you can't see the signage that's allowed. It faces the current allowed or grandfathered in signage. I believe faces the other side of 2A. You're going to cause an accident if you were to try to read the signs and know what you're pulling into there, because you can't see it. Actually faces, I think, the flagpole and the church across the street. So you're missing an entire audience of people who are coming to that intersection with the way it's currently allowed and the way this is currently still written. And I think what you need to do, and my suggestion would be, via Ms. Clark, after I've talked to her, Mr. Clark, and as well as other businesses in the village, is to allow freestanding signs, even if it's under a regulated way where people have to apply. Because you need to drive the traffic, and obviously you want to drive the traffic, and that's why you have this bill, but you're not accomplishing it the way it's currently drafted.
You didn't
phrase that in the form of an amendment. Phrase that in the
Mr.
form
Clark
of-
is about to get.
All right, Mr. Clark.
So my amendment would be, I move to amend Article 27, Section 417.8, Part C, by striking subsection 9 and 10, and thereby renumbering sections 11 and 12 to 9 and 10.
Is there a second? Second. So what we have now is a proposed amendment. Just like I did on the last article, I think it's helpful to have some discussion about the entirety of the article before we get bogged down into the amendments for the moment. So, Mr. Bernie's going to be allowed to address Mr. Clark and his representative first. Go ahead.
Okay, I think that I understand the speaker's concern about visibility. The statement that the convenience store would be allowed to have a larger sign than businesses from the village, I haven't done the calculation, so I can't speak to that. Signage size is based on a percent of facade. So if you have a larger facade, you're going to have more available signage. If you have more businesses, then clearly those signs get divided up by the larger size. The existence of freestanding signs has a mixed bag for, while it may attract some business, there's the visual impact, and this is a district that's intended to be pedestrian scale. So it's intended to bring people in through having foot traffic. A freestanding sign doesn't drive foot traffic. Furthermore, the village has existed for 40 years at this point, and no one has proposed a freestanding sign until such time as the public hearing for this village district was advertised. So the move towards a freestanding sign, I assume, is driven by a new tenant, and perhaps there's ways that they can work with the property owner to address some on-building signage on 2A, or to adjust some of the other on-building signage that is conforming with the bylaw that would fit. Again, you know, I think that having a regulated freestanding sign might have the desired impact, but I think that, again, you get into the issue of each and every property having a freestanding sign and what impact that has on the residents and the town as a whole.
Sir?
I had a question related to that and signs, and I'm just trying to figure out the Village Center District campus. Would the Village Center that we have there now not qualify as a campus where they could have that directory sign?
Again, I indicated that it may qualify, and that would be an interpretation question for the building inspector. I'm not going to, on town meeting floor.
Well, we've had issues in the past where building inspectors interpreted something one way and it was intended to be another. So can we find out what the intention of this is and where that sign could be? And
well, again, the intent is for, the intent is for campus developments to have the ability to have a directory sign. The interpretation of the bylaw is left to the building inspector, and any statements made here may create potential conflict with his interpretation in the future.
how do we define campus?
Developments that contain multiple buildings and uses on a single lot are encouraged as long as they are sensitive to the context of the surrounding area. So multiple buildings and uses on a single lot is, by the bylaw, the definition of campus.
It seems to me then that the village would be a campus.
As I indicated, I would tend to agree.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, you know, my observation, being in Lunenburg for 20 years too, is we seem to have this conflict on the vision of the downtown. We wanted a vibrant, walking village commercial district, and that nothing could be outside. okay, you have nice facades, but you don't see anything till you walk in the door. I'm not sure that's typical of other village districts or commercial areas, you know, that allow standing signs, outside displays. I mean, you know, we do have the outdoor agricultural farm stands outside of the library that I think we view as positive, which is kind of in conflict with restriction here. So I'm not sure having standing signs and outside displays is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think if you want to attract people, you have to put something out to attract them. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Moderator.
Still in the village.
I am. Thank you. Although some people might question. The question I have is, what about existing signs? How will they be impacted?
Mr. Moderator, existing signs won't be impacted. They're pre-existing non-conforming. And to speak back to the previous speaker, freestanding portable signs are permitted within the property boundaries of businesses.
What's that?
I am, but I've got some other comments after we get off the signs.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, we're not really debating signs at the moment. What I said was I took that proposed amendment and set it aside for the moment. For general discussion of the entire article, we haven't been focused on signs for the moment. But that doesn't preclude you from bringing anything up.
Okay, that's fine. My point is currently parking is in the center of town is problematic at best. The shared on-site parking as proposed further exacerbates the parking reality. The article says up to 50% of the request for the predominant use may be waived by the planning board or the Board of Appeals if the applicant can demonstrate that the peak demands for the uses do not overlap. An additional 25% may be waived with the addition of bicycle parking facilities. A total of 75% of the parking requirement may be waived if my calculations are correct. Is that right?
Mr. Moderator, I'll focus on the fact that it does say may, and I think that a property owner would have to display a significant lack of conflict and a significantly reduced requirement. One thing that might come to mind would be a retail location that is serviced by residents above, where the retail location is open, maybe it's a lunch facility, and they're only open in the middle of the day, and the residents are clearly in and out during that time, and so not accounting for residential parking within that, you may be allowed to get away with it. It would be a very proposal-driven approval, and that's why it's a may. It's not, if you can do this, the planning board or zoning board has to do that. It allows for it, and I think that the intent also falls into some of the discussion that's been had by the Building Reuse Committee, what potential uses are going to happen with some of the town buildings, and going forward doing renovations or other projects. Is there a possibility of a general parking lot being included in some of those developments? So I think it's giving the ability to do it, is not requiring them to go.
The building that you put up here, how big was that building?
Total?
Yeah.
The reconstruction, this version of it,
Yeah.
I believe it's in the ballpark of 15,000.
How many parking spaces are there?
It would depend on the use. Parking spaces are driven by use, not by square footage.
I just think that there's a possibility for some real problems here with parking, and I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Hi, Nathan Lockwood, member of Planning Board. Just want to make a couple comments about the process of arriving at the bylaw and some of the substance of the bylaw, and particularly with regard to the signage conversation. So as far as the process of the bylaw goes, it's been in the works for a couple of years. There's been quite a few public hearings. This type of input we're hearing now about signage. It's a good conversation between what Adam's representing the goals of the Village Center District. The previous speakers on signage here, expressed some thoughts about their perspective on the impact of signage. These would have been great during the public hearing process, and it would have been easier to address and come to a thoughtful agreement on this in that stage. For the amendment as worded, I have concerns about, as worded, if you look at the signage laws in our existing bylaws for districts generally, they're pretty complicated. You can make the case they're too complicated or not complicated enough, but long story short is, this is a technical matter that doesn't really lend itself to an amendment on town floor. Now, the good news is that, this bylaw, although it will immediately begin to have certain impacts in terms of zoning, the bylaw as a whole itself does not go into effect until January 1st of 2016. So I think although that may not provide the needs the speakers have talked about in terms of signing, what I would say is I think there is an opportunity to engage with the planning board between now and January 16th. And if there's a special town meeting, I think having that time to do the public hearings and have the discussions representing various concerns would be a better way to go about it. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Main Street. So what's going on in the Village Center District are two things. We're what's called upzoning, making commercial available in all the areas that are currently residential, and we're downzoning the current commercial, which is the Village Center. And my concern about the freestanding signs is that we have a district that covers just about all of the historic district, and I don't think it's appropriate to have a lot of freestanding signs across that park. At the same time, I agree with what the various speakers have said about the concept of the campus development, and in many ways, the village complex really is and always was a campus development. And that I would encourage, as the Vice Chair of the Planning Board stated, that there be some sort of amendment made going forward to provide for a mini district or some sort of designation of the village complex as a campus center. And then that would deal with some of the things. Because in many ways, we consider that commercial already, and some of these signs would be appropriate in my opinion.
I just want to make sure, I'm guessing you're about signs. So I want to make sure if there's anything else before we get down more on signs. Do you have something other than signs? You want to talk about signs?
Yeah, something else.
Okay, so why don't you tell me what that is?
Okay, Larry Marshall, 42 Main Street. First of all, I want to compliment the planning board on this, and I did attend a public meeting, and I'm happy to see that they incorporated most of my suggestions into this. But there's one I'm still not happy with, which is under the campus developments, 4.179, A11, where it talks about transparency. This is a lot better than it was. The draft I saw had a transparency requirement of at least 60%. Basically glass across the front of the building. This is still calling for no more than 60%, which I agree with, but at least 35%, which I feel is still too high. What I'm picturing here is with a professional office building that wants to be built. They want to do it in a colonial style. They're already required to have a doorway on that facade, and now you're going to have 35% transparency. Let's say the building 30 feet wide. You're going to have the majority of that front of that building, okay? And I don't think it's need it in there because you already have a development plan review standard that they have to go through. So you're going to have input into that right there. I mean, I'd rather see there be no minimum load than that, but I'd be perfectly happy to say, I'll use my home as an example. It's a colonial home. I have windows in the front of the home. I have less than a 15% transparency on the front of the home. You know, to say that has to be 2.5 times that, it's not going to look like a colonial home in it. And especially when this doesn't even have a door in it, so you stick a door in there too, the majority of that facade can disappear. I don't think that's the intent, and I just think this percentage is too high. I would suggest reducing it to 20%.
Now, you've been through this before, Mr. Marks, you're making that as a suggestion?
I'm making that as a motion.
Pardon?
I am making that as a motion.
An amendment. Okay, you're gonna write it down, like where you are in the article specifically, so that we can deal with that. Okay? We'll take that up as the second one. Bring it up when we've got the rest. Attorney Robinson, are you speaking again now just on signs or something different?
Just on signs, but
Okay, so this is going to be on signs, and then we're going to start voting, because it's getting late.
Mr. Clark, after we excuse me, for formalities.
Go ahead.
All right. Just to address a couple other comments after mine. My understanding is that the way the proposed amendment regarding sign equivalency or on a facade is that if there's multiple businesses on a single facade, sharing a single facade, but one of those businesses is significantly larger than the rest, they're still relegated to the same signage size as the other smaller businesses despite their size. Is that correct?
Mr. Moderator, I would say that is correct.
Secondly, it is my understanding that Mr. Arce, whose son I believe is now running and maintaining the village, has in the past previously requested from the planning board the ability to build a freestanding sign and has been denied. Additionally, it's my understanding that one of the physicians who's in the building used to have a sign on the rear of the building facing people on 2A heading east and was asked by the planning board to take it down. Additionally, I understand there's a barber who wanted to put up one of those old-fashioned barber pole things on the side of the building, and he's been denied. So this isn't just a brand-new owner or a business coming in and demanding this. This is a history of the business owners there feeling like the planning board is listening to them, which is, I think, why we're now dealing with this today. Additionally, I want to point out that Mrs. Clark is a realtor who has, for the better part of the last decade, represented the village in terms of renting space. And she stated that somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 40% of the potential business owners who have turned down renting space there have cited the lack of signage or ability to put up signage as one of their reasons for not renting. Secondary for the rest of the percentage of people who changed their minds from renting there to Unitil's prices. That's not a good list to be on for reasons why you don't want to rent property. Additionally, I want to point out that over the past week since Mrs. Clark has asked me to attend, I've done some research onto other similarly sized small towns. Pembroke, Townsend, Westminster, Littleton, Bedford, Amesbury, Concord, Lexington, Broughton, Bolton. All of these towns allow freestanding signs in the center of the town. And in fact, I even went so far as to go on Google Maps and print pictures of them. So if anyone's interested to see alternative freestanding signs that are historical based and look historically accurate, I'm happy to share those with you. I think it can be done in a way that fits the goals of what you're trying to achieve here, but also helps these businesses thrive. And I don't know if that means an amendment to my amendment, that instead of striking, that we put in a clause that states, you know, they have to go for permission to the planning board, but don't make it where it's completely not allowed, which is how it's written currently.
Well, Attorney Robinson, therefore I'll give you back your yellow piece of paper.
Yes.
Because we haven't voted on it yet, so when you get to it, we'll be able to vote on exactly what you said. Sir?
I was actually going to ask whether Mr. Clark would amend his motion and not strike 10 and 11, but to designate Village Center District a campus.
I didn't follow that. Let us start again. Must be getting late, I must be on overload. Why don't you wait and see what Attorney Robinson and Mr. Clark have to say, hopefully quickly, as to what their amendment is now.
I haven't had a chance to read it, just to respond. It was sections 9 and 10 that we have currently proposed, not 10 and 11. I think we would be happy to amend it. I can talk to you about the language in a second. However, I just want to be sure, because right now the way the village district campus is written is that the signs are merely for directions. So if there was, it still prevents a large sign that is just for advertising purposes only to the passerby. So I want to be clear that we're happy to work on that, just not in that exact language.
Right. You guys need to get that together pretty quick, because we're at the end of the debate. It's time to vote. Mr. Pastor.
David Passes, 56 Whiting Street. Just going to play the devil's advocate for a minute. My recollection, on the 2A side of that building, back when it was the U.S. Post Office, I believe there was a sign on the grass area between building and 2A. Freestanding sign. It was mounted in the ground permanently, advertising the post office. Secondly, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not against the sign that's there. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. The announcement sign that was placed on the Gritter property a couple of years ago is a freestanding sign. And how does that come under present bylaws and or future that you're proposing here?
Mr. Byrne.
Well, I'll go backwards. The sign on the Ritter property is a municipal sign. It advertises the town of Lunenburg and civic events, therefore would be exempt from the proposed bylaw, and without going and pulling out my protected bylaw, generally municipal signs are exempt from the existing zoning sign bylaws in most communities. The building, as shown here, to a previous speaker's concern about glazing, this is approximately 40% glazing, so you could reduce down another 5% and still be within what's proposed for the glazing within the campus developments. And to go back, maybe one more speaker, the information about previous attempts to locate freestanding signage, I was unable to locate in doing research when I spoke to the original proponent of the amendment, and I'll be happy to announce that should the bylaw pass, the barber pole would be allowed per what's written in the text of town meeting warrant.
Good, it's on you to hear. Okay.
Mr. Moderator, this doesn't have anything to do with signs. And although you didn't ask us, I just would like to use this opportunity to say that the Building Reuse Committee strongly recommends that the town approve this article, in that we've been doing quite a bit of work over the last year, and this is one of the major steps for us to be able to find best possible uses for the buildings under our charter.
We're going to vote on this. Attorney Robinson. We've got to vote on the amendment, yes. If we have it. Go ahead, Mr. Luck. Bail him out. Take a minute.
Yeah, just jump in while she's doing that. Carl Luck with the Sunset Link. I'm glad you put the picture back up there and put us in perspective that that's 40%. Because now seeing that, I'm in strong favor of the motion to reduce it to 25%. Because 5% less than that is still a political ask to require, in my opinion.
Well, then, I'm going to take that as a second on that gentleman's amendment, which I forgot to get a second, so now I have it. Okay, Mr. Clark? This is Mr. Clark's amendment to the article regarding signs. Go ahead.
I would just like to note that, the statement that it's not appropriate to make an amendment to an article after we entertained a gentleman who wanted to take his property out of the historical district, and that was okay, so.
Pardon?
I don't appreciate being told that it's not appropriate to amend an article at town meeting for 5 hours.
Who said it wasn't appropriate to amend the article?
This gentleman.
Or previous speaker?
Yes,
It's perfectly appropriate to amend an article at any time. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, my amendment is that move that Article 27, Section 4.17.8, Part C.
Hold on, let's put that up on the board, because I gotta be able to follow these. Mr. Burke, thank you. Say it again.
Move that Article 27, Section 4.17.8, Part C, amend Section 10 to state freestanding signs should be consistent with the use of the district, and the building owner must apply a special permit to the appropriate permitting authority.
Second. That's your first amendment. And is this second one tied into it?
Can I ask for an edit of that?
Hold on, I don't understand. Just this. It's just what you just read for section 10 that's on the board. Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, there's a second to that. Okay, now we will debate his amendment, which read on that section 10, okay? Freestanding signs should be consistent with the use of the district, and the building owner must apply for special permit to appropriate permitting authority. On the amendment, discussion.
Ken Chenis, 715 Page Street. It would just be good if we could edit it slightly to incorporate the right use of portable and temporary signs, as opposed to requiring requesting permission to use portable and temporary signs.
He's asking you if you'll accept an amendment to his amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chenis, you need to put that in writing, or add it to this, so we understand what you added. You can get this and put it on. So say it again, not just to him, but to the body, so they know what it is you're saying.
I'll work on the wording, but I want to add in that the portable and temporary sign usage is by right, not by permit or request. And I also think we have to add in who the permitting body is, which would be the planning board, correct? Is that okay?
Correct.
Okay, good. You'll work on the language. Everybody know what you're voting on. Anybody doesn't understand?
Mr. Moderator, Bobby Griswold here. I'm not clear what consistent with the use of the district means. So if we go anywhere else in the village center district that is the subject of this application, the end of Leominster Road near West Street, a sign that's consistent with the use of the district, I don't understand what that means.
I pulled that language from under buildings, 4.17.18, sorry, 4.17.8 design standards. Part B buildings, section 10 says lighting, signage, and architectural style shall be consistent with other uses in the district. So I was going to define it along the same lines since it's also signage. So whatever your intent was, or whatever the planning board's intent in drafting that sentence would be the same intent here.
So then to be consistent, it should be consistent with other uses of the district.
That would be fine.
That's the amendment to Mr. Chenis's amendment. The wording.
Mr. Berkey, while they're working out their language, I got to hold on to 50 people here. I got a number more articles to go. Some of them very simple. So let's go.
So I have no problem with signs, but I will personally vote no against this amendment because I'm not comfortable with this process of real-time editing of a complicated article. So I intend to vote no on this amendment.
Sign, sign, everywhere, sign. Are we ready? I'm going to devolve it to real silly.
Then again, I take offense to that, for real-time editing of a complicated article. A lot of people talking to this article that alludes is that complex. And we're just looking to change one line item of about 50. And like the gentleman said, this article doesn't take effect until January 1st, 2016. So it's better to modify it now so it's in there, and to pass it as it is, and then have to have a struggle to try to get it changed once it's voted on as it is. I would recommend that people err on the side of caution, put the language in it, and then we have, whatever, 7-8 months, if so needed, to refine that specific language. Thank you.
You done, Mr. Chenis?
Yes.
Okay, give it to Mr. Eversole, who wants to tweak very little, just to make sure we're absolutely clear. And Mr. Eversole's adjustment is fairly minor, okay? Just a little bit of reference notes. Okay, so I think we're ready to vote on the amendment, which is to change number 10 as it's been read to you. Anybody need further clarification? Anybody need to read it again? All those in favor of the amendment, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Let's do it again. All those in favor of the amendment, to line 10, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The amendment passes by a majority. We all set, gentlemen? Okay, I'm going to declare that we are now ready to vote finally on Article 27 in its entirety as amended. So, I thought I just voted. Is this another amendment? Because the language, when you told the language, was very small technical change. Correct, Mr. Eversole? Correct. We have voted on it, and it is approved. The amendment has been done.
Point of order. Before we vote on Article 27, there was another motion to amend.
Oh, that's right. I apologize. Thank you very much. That was a point of order. Good on you. Okay. Was it Mr. Marshall that had the second one? Or you had it? I do. Okay, Mr. Marshall. Section 4.17.9, subsection A. Oh my God. It changed from at least 35% to at least 20%. And Mr. Lux seconded that. Debate discussion on this amendment. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. The amendment. Good. Now we're ready for Article 27 in its entirety as amended twice. Those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 28! If you're all going to leave,
These will be
come
quick.
back on Tuesday night. You got to stay. I need 50 people. Article 28.
Article 28, again, still Ken Chenis, still 17 Page Street. I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by adding to section 3.1 a new subsection 3.1.0 Village Center District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen,
Recommend approval.
Finance Committee,
No direct impact.
Planning Board,
Approved.
what vote?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Requires a 2/3. Any debate on this? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. 29.
Article 29, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws by deleting the words May 3rd, 2008 in section 3.2.1 and replacing with the words May 2nd, 2015.
Is there a second? Second. Is Selectman, what's your rec?
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No direct impact.
Planning Board,
Unanimous approval.
thank you. Requires 2/3. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. 30.
Article 30, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 4.16, registered marijuana dispensaries, to correct the numbering sequence by renumbering 4.16.9.1 as 4.16.7.1, 4.16.9.2 as 4.16.7.2, and 4.16.10 as 4.16.8.
Is there a second? Selectman,
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No impact.
Planning Board,
Approved unanimously.
requires 2/3. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. 31.
Article 31, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by adding to section 5.2 setbacks in yards, a new subsection 5.2.5.1E Village Center District as printed in the warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectman,
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No impact.
Planning Board,
Approved unanimously.
requires 2/3. All those in
Moderator.
favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I was on a roll there. Okay, Mr. Passio, go ahead.
I honestly have to admit, I did not digested this completely. I have one question that I would like to pose about offsets and property lines, and that is whether or not this amendment affects the Passio School and the borders of the middle high school property.
It would affect the Passio School only by product of the proposed property would be within the village district. It would reduce the property offset. So anything that is currently allowed would be acceptable and would reduce it, I believe, by about 10 feet. So essentially, we're cutting the property offsets that were approved within the village district in Article 27 and just placing them in the setback section of the bylaw.
Article 31. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Article 32.
Article 32, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by amending section 8.4, development plan review, subsection 8.4.2.1.a, to add after retail commercial district, the words and village center district.
Is there a second? Selectman,
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No impact.
Planning Board.
Approved unanimously.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. 33.
Article 33, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning map to show the new delineation of the village center district of the town.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Selectman,
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No impact.
Planning Board.
Unanimously approved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Number 34.
I'm on a roll. Article 34, I move that the town vote to designate Flat Hill Road in its entirety as a scenic road under MGL Chapter 40, Section 15C.
Is there a second? Thank you. Select Board.
Recommend approval.
Finance,
No impact.
Planning Board.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you. All those in favor? I'm gonna get up fast. You can see me on a roll down here.
Sorry to stop the roll, I want you guys.
But
just like an explanation of the graphic that's on the second page of Scenic Road.
This was just meant to be illustrative. I anticipated doing a presentation, essentially what...
I cut you off.
That's all right. It was only 3 slides, 2 of which are pictures. These numbers are not correct for what exists in the town of Lunenburg. What we were looking at is just identifying the traveled way, the shoulder, and the property line to identify that this only covers things within the right-of-way and stone walls. So if you have a tree that's 15 feet off your house and your house is 100 feet from the road, the scenic road bylaw doesn't cover that. If you have a road that's a tree that's within the right-of-way, that would be covered under the scenic road bylaw. So I understand your concern about widths and all that. This was the best, clearest picture that I can put on the wall.
Okay, suffice to say then that the Scenic Road limitations only cover what's within the town right.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levon.
Brian Lafont, Arbor Street. Just a quick question. Are there any possibility for state funds for scenic roads as designated?
There is not.
Thank you.
Any answer go?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Article 34, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 35.
Article 35, I move that the town vote to designate Northfield Road in its entirety as a scenic road under MGL Chapter 40, Section 15C.
Second.
Finance.
No impact.
Select.
Recommend approval.
Planning.
Unanimously approved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. 36.
Article 36, I move that the town vote to accept Whitetail Crossing as a public way.
There a second?
Second.
Select.
Wanted to make sure, we're going to make a decision, but we want to make sure the last criteria was met. That was precluded from us voting earlier because of weather conditions of the melting snow.
So you're going to get together and discuss that?
And we're going to make sure, we're going to hear whether all the
what's said.
criteria from the planning board has been satisfied, either by the proponent or by the planning board.
All criteria for the...
Hold on. Finance.
No direct impact.
Okay, planning board?
All criteria for the planning board has been met.
What's your recommendation?
The planning board unanimously recommends approval.
Okay. So explain to us what Mr. Alonso is asking you so that the body knows what he's talking about. What criteria is met?
There was some final grading work that needed to be done for the road, and that couldn't be done while the ground was wet.
There were 2 items. There was some loaming and seeding in the driveway that works were planned to be paved. To the best of my knowledge, the applicant has completed it, and I've viewed that he has loamed and seeded the area. The driveway was done prior to our mild snowy winter.
Mr. Proctor?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Dan Proctor, 1529 Massachusetts Avenue. I'm the contractor who constructed Whitetail Crossing. Yes, the loom and seeding happened yesterday, and like Mr. Burr said, the paving was done prior to the time.
So if I may, Mr. Moderator, I would ask that a motion from the board.
Excuse me, hold on, I actually have a correction. I mistakenly spoke that we unanimously voted in favor of it. Mr. Allison did not vote in favor of it, so we were a 3-1 vote against it.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. Select board.
Second. Further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous.
Select board recommends approval unanimously. Did you need to say more, Mr. Proctor?
No, I think that's enough, thank you.
Great, glad to have you. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Matthew Allison, 305 Flat Hill. Just a question about the road is, does it involve some of the proprietary devices that we are not equipped as a town to actually perform the maintenance on, such as the CBS or Vortex units that require that we don't have?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. The stormwater process, does that require a vacuum truck?
I believe Jack is going to answer that question, but no, I do not think so.
Evening, Jack Rodkins, 178 Arbor Street, DPW Director. This road just missed approval last year because of a punch list developed by Ross Associates, the peer engineer. Since that time, the contractor, the previous speaker, to the best of my knowledge, inclusive of the looming and seeding, has completed every task he was asked to do. In terms of the vortex drainage, that's not included in this project. And though that's certainly an important factor in projects moving forward, even if it were involved, the contractor has completed his end of the deal, so to speak. There's nothing left for him to do. Nothing is standing in the way of acceptance of the road.
Thank you. All set, sir?
Just to follow up, as far as all the stormwater requirements for maintaining that road, are we capable of doing that? Is that gonna not fail due to lack of maintenance?
Lack of maintenance generally in the town is in some degree of failure throughout the community due to lack of resources. And that's certainly going to be a huge issue, as I said, moving forward with the acceptance or rejection of projects in the future. Whatever, again, whatever the contractor was supposed to do, he did. Whether we as a town supply the Department of Public Works with the resources to keep up with the maintenance, that's another whole discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Article 36, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Number 37.
Article 37, I move that the town vote to approve a zoning change from commercial to limited business residential, land described as parcels currently designated parcel 8 on Assessor's Map 59 and parcel 9 on Assessor's Map 59.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectman. Excuse me? I just on asking the selectmen for their recommendation. Thank you. Second, recommend approval. Thank you. Finance?
The Finance Committee was to make a recommendation at town meeting. We were uncertain if the change in zoning would have any direct financial impact. So we would ask the Planning Commission or the Planning Board to comment on that.
We don't perceive any direct financial impact.
I'll accept the motion to recommend approval. No direct.
Thank you. Planning Board, your recommendation?
The planning board recommends approval with a vote of 3 in favor and 1 abstain.
Thank you. Now you may speak, sir.
David Riley, 27 Cross Road, and I'd like to have Alan Loma, executive of the estate, speak on this matter.
Sure. Come right up, sir.
Thank you, and pleasure being here today. Although we'd probably rather be doing baseball or something, right? I just want to state a case and ask a question that why is Ed Riley Stone Farm being singled out for this action today? I just don't know why. And I want to go into a little bit about my father-in-law because I need to say this. You know, he ran a business there for 55 years, raised a family, died at 81. He was a decorated WW2 war veteran, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, came back and had the guts to buy that whole property. And over a period of years, went from a vegetable stand to a grocery and beer, and then full liquor. He held the longest liquor license in Massachusetts for 55 years. The property was there before Conrad's, the funeral home, the bank, the golf station. You can go on and on and on. Now, he died in 2006, and he owned the property that's out back, which was to be a 55 and older community. When I say that, people back there get upset. But the process took about 3 years for that to go through. He had bought the property, paid taxes all of those years, only to go through a process of 3 years with the town, which is normal, but he died 6 months later. Okay, so the front
town property was going to be sold to the developer in the back, and he was going to buy a townhouse out back. So in 2006, the 8 kids, we inherited this property, which was a home and a business. And because he was sick for over 24 months, we didn't put another business in there, so that excluded us from having somebody live there and run a business. So we turned away people after people. One guy wanted to put a bicycle shop. There's a 6-bedroom house in there. It doesn't look like it from the road, but it goes into the barn. 2 baths, 6 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and a family room. But we turned away people repeatedly. I talked to Mike Savage, and he's been very helpful, but we couldn't sell it to somebody to live in and put a store. One was a bicycle store, pedal bike, another kayak, another guy wanted to do woodworking. So we were locked out of selling it that way. So about a year or so ago, as all of you know, Gary Archer in Littleton and Air wanted to put a gas station in there. Now, as a family, that wasn't our first choice either, because we had other big gas stations wanting to do something there, but Gary Archer was really kind of special. If you look at his gas station in Littleton and Air, they're very small, compact, and clean. We went in front of the zoning board, and naturally people were upset about it, but unlike what was reported in the Fitchburg Sentinel, he conceded the car wash, he made a smaller building, he brought the sign down to the smallest sign that he could put in front of there. And the objection was the 2 houses across the street, the land value. And they were comparing them to Cumberland Farms in Leominster, where the houses were like 50 feet beside the gas station. Naturally, the land values would go down. But the 2 houses, we sold one because it was taking so long to get through the town, he needed money to stay in his house. So we sold one with the business going, brought the guy over a bottle of wine, and okay, everything's good. He passes away, and we sold the other house. A couple people bought it, but the complaint at the zoning meeting was the property values. Well, on the side of our building, we had commercial on it. If you're going to buy a house across from a building that has commercial on it, wouldn't you ask? But she depended on the town fathers to protect her. So Gary Archer spent about $50,000. Since the building, and we kept the building up, nobody here can say we haven't plowed it, we mowed the lawn, I've stayed there occasionally. It doesn't look in disrepair, so I take offense to people saying it's deserted or abandoned. It's not. In fact, we spent $120,000 over the last 8 years keeping that property. I've been paying taxes. You can check the tax records. Our taxes aren't back, I just paid them. Okay? I understand what's going on here. I mean, I tried to put an A&R plan in with Jamie at Whitman and Bingham. I think somebody got wind of it because with an A&R plan, we protect it for 3 years, the commercial part of it. So the selectmen put an article in which kind of blocked that. And I really don't know where that stands now. But we just want to sell the property. My father-in-law lived here 82 years. He loved this town. And that development back there, he could have put 40B in there at the time, gotten more money, but he wanted a community like what's back there. So I'm standing up here as executive, as a representative of what he would want. What he would want is, as a person who's a veteran that fought for the freedoms of this country, to be able to do what he can with his property. But on the other hand, he'd want what's best for the town. But we were not given the opportunity. I mean, this thing just came at us. We tried to sell it commercially, even if the A&R plan goes through, it didn't. The fact is, nobody came and told us you only had 24 months. We didn't know that. I mean, who would? But on the A&R plan, we might have come to you and said, we can't sell it commercially because there's 9,000 cars a day that go by there. Up through the center of town, we have the traffic count. If we couldn't sell it commercially, we probably would have come and said, can we do limited business residential because we could put houses in there. There's actually 3 lots in there. So now The building isn't historic. I mean, there's a house built in there, there's an add-on. Oh, sorry, the front hasn't changed. I mean, it has changed. It's nothing what was there before. And there was a 1700 house across the street that the town, thank you, took down and put a parking lot there. So my original question is, what instituted, why this change? Why not the Sozic's property down the street that's commercial? Are we being singled out for whatever reason to have our property? And the values, it's easy for you to say there's no impact, but how do I know if a builder bought it and what a commercial builder wanted to go in there? I contacted medical groups that have off-site medical buildings where if you have a heart attack, they can run you down there, or you have somebody hurt on a base. And guess what they said? We don't want to build in Lunenburg. It's too hard to build in Lunenburg. Forget it. I also had realtors that refused to list the property. So there's something inherently wrong here. And whatever decision you make today, I'll respect that. But I do not think you know the hardships that we've endured, never mind $120,000, to do the right thing with the property.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, again, why was it singled out? And the other one last thing I have on this map, the map where it shows it goes into the Lascotti development now, that was never commercial. And I talked to Savageau about it, and Whitman and Bingham. It ended at our lawn and went right almost to the end of that redemption center. It never went there. And when they did the development back there, somehow some surveyor moved that commercial lot into the driveway. So you can see the line there. That never went into that driveway. I have the deed from the lady that passed away and the blueprints of that property line, and they will attest, okay, that 40 years, we used to play football on the lawn actually. That line that you see that was the driveway was the end of the commercial. It actually went up into the redemption a little bit more.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The vote of the Board of Selectmen was actually 3-2 to recommend approval of this article, and I was one of the individuals who voted against recommending approval. And the reason that I did that is for all of the reasons that the former speaker mentioned. This property has been zoned commercial. Yes, the surrounding area is zoned otherwise. However, there are numerous commercial enterprises along that strip. There has been talk by the planning director and the planning board that looking at the town as a whole and going through the exercise of determining what areas should be zoned and what's appropriate, and I wholeheartedly support that. However, there is a direct financial impact to this family and to this property, and I think that before we make this change, I think there needs to be a dialogue and there needs to be a cooperative effort to make sure that we are making those zoning changes appropriately. And I personally believe that a lot more discussion and dialogue needs to happen before town meeting takes such a drastic action, and I would recommend that the town meeting do not approve this article.
So, Moderator, I share Mr. Perkins' feelings, and while I also voted against recommending approval to this, I did listen to the planning board, and at least from the 45-minute discussion that I heard, it sounded to me that it was possible that making this zoning change would be in the interest of the party at the microphone. I also would like to understand what is best for the parties before we make a decision that's going to make things worse for them, if that's the case.
Mr. Alonso.
As one of the members who voted in favor of recommending approval of this article, I want to step back and say that the zoning of the town, as Mr. Ingersoll said earlier in the meeting, was done in the 1960s. And this property, the reason it stands out against everything else in its neighboring property lines, being limited business residential, was the fact that the business already existed. So they zoned that commercial because there was no other way to allow that there, and they just said, okay, since it's there, they'll zone it commercial. But it certainly is out of step with the rest of the neighboring properties. That being said, and also the proponent what the man with the microphone of the estate, saying that they had other people who wanted to live there and have businesses, such that he cited at the planning board meeting of last Monday. They reviewed and they had questions about what was allowed in a limited business residential area, and was mixed use where you could live on a residence and have a business there allowed. It was determination of the planning board that that was allowed. So many of the items or the people who were interested in the property would be available under this zoning change. So the zoning change does two things. It makes whole the district as it would have been seen if the package store was not there when zoning was instituted. And as Mr. Toll said, and as the planning board said at their meeting, I think it actually enhances opportunities for people to live on the property because it is a residence and it has commercial or business potential. It allows for that possibility where commercial districts do not allow residency on commercial district properties. So I am in favor of it.
Okay, so you may respond.
No, I understand. I appreciate your comments on this, but the fact is, my concern right now isn't if it's commercial, residential, or limited. My concern is selling the property and having the proper building or whatever goes on in there that's appropriate for the town. So if we were to, let's say we won today and I could keep the commercial, the problem is I'm stuck with that for a full year, if I'm correct, because I have to wait until the next town meeting to come in front of people and say I want limited business residential. Am I correct?
We're on the floor trying to make a limited business now, so that you would be able to sell it for those purposes that we discussed.
I know, but if I'm pulling it out of commercial, I'm totally,
No, it would be limited. The entire area is already zoned limited business.
Limited business residential. And for some reason, when they zoned the area limited business residential, which Stone Farm would have fit into that zoning, they excluded Stone Farm. And I don't know the reasoning or the history as to why it was excluded, but had they just included it as limited business residential, then the Stone Farm usage and all those usages that we discussed would have been potential uses for it through special permit, because you would be able to live in the residence and have a business on the same property. And that's allowed through limited business. Unfortunately, it was excluded when we did that rezoning, and it was left as commercial. And as commercial, that use is not allowed. So you can't have a mixed residence and business use case. And so what we're trying to do is fix what was done some time ago when they excluded it from the limited business zoning and make it limited business zoning so that another use could go into effect there, like the Stone Farm. You had mentioned, someone had talked about putting a canoe, a boat building shop in there, a bike shop, which would be great, and live on the residence. Those would all be uses that are in alignment with the limited business zoning that we're proposing changing it to.
but according to Mike Savageau, if we got an offer on the house, somebody bought the house, then they would have to go to you and ask for the, and who's going to spend the money to buy it first, and then go into it.
Let's go back. I'm not sure what you were talking about waiting a year. If this passes and the zoning is switched to limited business residential, as of the certification of the vote, you can make application under that zoning. Now, if someone were to want to purchase it and do a combination residence retail under limited business, they would have to get a special permit. And many people in many places sign purchase and sales contingent upon receiving the appropriate approvals. That is not something that is, crazy. It's something that we see all the time from the planning perspective. So I don't think it's a risk that someone would not be willing to do that. There was mention of an A&R on the property. That was signed by the planning board. It is ready to be picked up and recorded. The land is able to be divided once that's recorded and the appropriate deeds are drawn up. The inquiry about the A&R was made after the first advertising of the public hearing.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
That would be up to you.
Who initiated that? I'd just like to know and why.
The engineer or surveyor who represents the property owner inquired after the time that the public hearing had been advertised about what the filing dates were, when the meetings were, etc. As for the genesis of this, when the gas station was proposed, I made inquiries as to how the zoning was allowing that, because in the initial look, I thought it was all limited business residential. It was indicated that one property was zoned commercial. I made recommendation to the planning board that it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a situation like this, where you have an island of a single zoning within a separate district, and that creating the zoning that was probably the original intent at the time limited business was introduced, as was mentioned by a previous speaker. Generally, when you rezone, you don't leave random spot zones, you pull them into the district. Even if there were a use that were not allowed in limited business within that property, it would be allowed as a continuing existing non-conforming use until such time as it's abandoned. I know that the previous speaker has taken issue with the term abandoned. That is a term that is in the Mass General Law for uses that do not carry on for a period of 24 months, so it's not a slight on the condition of the property. It's kept very well for something that hasn't had a business for a decade. And again, there are a number of things that are allowed within the limited business residential that seem to be what was the intent and the desire of the property owner to have located there, that it may allow for them to do.
Well, I'm just taking notice of Conrad's that was there after. I mean, it was established, but that being said, we just want something to go in there, something that's good for the town, okay? Like the medical center that could go in there, I think it could go in there on the limited industrial, okay? But unfortunately, the people didn't want to do that. So I appreciate you having me up here today, but I don't really think you need to vote. I mean, we'll go with limited residential, simply because I'm speaking for my father-in-law, and he will probably want us to do that. And the commercial was just there, it's really cost us about $90,000.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one final thing. When the planning board discussed this, and we chose to support going forward with the zoning for limited business residential, we really did feel that it was in your best interest that this be zoned the same as the surrounding areas, and that the existing structure could be able to be used as both a residential location and a business location, which is precluded by the commercial.
I understand that, but it was basically, I hate the term, but it's arbitrary and capricious, because arbitrary and capricious said it was made on unreasonable grounds without the proper consideration of circumstances. We were never brought into the conversation. The article just went through and that was it. So that's what's upsetting. I mean, it's a community that should be talking back and forth to the landowners. But I think you understand our position now.
Appreciate that. Mrs. Bertram.
I just want to be clear about I would like to understand